After some rain and a few dreary days, I think we're back to mild temperatures and some beautiful weather. Well, I think that it's time to get outside, to get some vitamin D, to enjoy God's creation, to smile up at the sky, and to thank God for all our provisions, even in this difficult time. And I know that Psalm 118 verse 25 says, "This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." Now, I'm going to rejoice in it by taking another nice hike up at Fair Hill today. And so I hope that you're able to rejoice in this beautiful day that the Lord has made as well. And it's good to see you, David. I know that you are watching right now. So anyways, today we'll be looking at a passage from the Gospel of Matthew where Jesus is contending with some religious leaders. It's from Matthew chapter 22, verses 15 to 22. So feel free to turn there now if you'd like to follow along. Again, that's Matthew chapter 22, verses 15 to 22. And it says this: "Then the Pharisees, they went and they plotted to entrap him in what he said. So they sent their disciples to him, along with the Herodians, saying, 'Teacher, we know that you are sincere and teach the way of God in accordance with the truth, and you show deference to no one, for you do not regard people with partiality. Tell us, then, what you think. Is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor or not?' But Jesus, aware of their malice, said, 'Why are you putting me to the test, you hypocrites? Show me the coin used for the tax.' And so they brought him a denarius. And then he said to them, 'Whose head is this, and whose title?' And they answered, 'It's the emperor's.' And then Jesus said to them, 'Well, give therefore to the emperor the things that are the emperor's, and to God the things that are God's.' When they heard this, they were amazed, and they left him, and they went away." So, and Jesus knows, and we know, if we've been reading through the scriptures, that these religious leaders are plotting to have Jesus killed. That's basically their end goal. And way back in Matthew chapter 12, verse 14, it says that the Pharisees went out and they conspired against Jesus, how to destroy him. So they wanted Jesus dead for a multitude of reasons. For the claims that he was making, for the deeds, the miracles, the amazing things that he did, his threat to their religious system, his threat to their way of life, the people with whom he socialized. The religious leaders despised those sinners with whom Jesus socialized. The lack of respect that he had for religious traditions. All of those reasons and more. And, think about it for a minute. In our human nature, we unfortunately like to cling to the power, the wealth, the status that we have. And any threat to that, it can be really scary. Any threat to our power, our wealth, our status, we tend to lash out against that. And so here are the religious leaders, the Pharisees, and they're being called out by Jesus. Their teachings are being undermined by the teachings of Jesus. Their establishment, their religious order, their religious institution, it's under threat. Their whole way of life is under threat because of Jesus and what he is teaching. If his teachings take hold, it could crumble the whole system, because they're living in a corrupt system. And so they wanted Jesus dead. They're trying to figure out any way they can to trap him, to trick him, to figure out a way that they can legally and rightly end Jesus' life. And so here in our text, they put on this guise of respect and deference to Jesus. They're being sly. They're addressing him as rabbi or as teacher. They talk about, what do they say? They say, teacher, we know that you are sincere and you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. They're lying to Jesus. They're putting on a face and trying to trick him. But Jesus knows their intentions. Jesus knows their intentions are not pure. And so he is able to respond to them in a really awesome way. Now, I want to be upfront here that, interestingly, the Pharisees aren't referring to the general issue of paying taxes here. Rather, they're talking about a very specific issue, a very specific tax called the census tax that had to be paid in Roman coin. You'll remember that Jesus was born during the census, right? His family went back to their hometown for the purpose of the census. Well, the census also included a tax. And this tax was despised by the Jewish people. They felt it was very oppressive. And so out of the Roman census came this Jewish zealot movement. It was actually called the Zealot movement. And it eventually led to the first Jewish-Roman war, as religious fervor rose to violence and an attempt to overthrow the Roman rulers. That happened between 60 and 70 AD, after Jesus had already died. Remember, Jesus foretold the destruction of the temple. Well, the destruction of the temple occurs because of that Jewish-Roman war. And so this census tax, it could only be paid in Roman coin. And the coin contained a phrase that many Jewish people believed was blasphemous. It said, Tiberius Caesar, August, son of the divine Augustus, high priest. It basically declared Caesar to be divine. And so this very controversial tax that had to be paid with this coin that had this blasphemous logo, or this blasphemous saying on it, it was hard for the Jewish people to deal with all of that. And they were really against it. And so either way, this was a trick question to Jesus, though. He would either alienate the nationalists, the Jewish people, if he replied in the affirmative, or he would be subject to arrest by the Roman authorities if he replied in the negative. So it's like a catch-22 situation that Jesus finds himself when he's facing this question. So what does Jesus do? How does Jesus respond in this situation? Well, he asks for one of the Roman coins, and then he says, give to Caesar what is Caesar's. And the Jewish law here, it's important to know that the Jewish law here, it does not forbid the paying of taxes to the emperor. And so he's answering the question they asked, whether or not it's lawful by the Jewish law to pay taxes. He says it's lawful. It's lawful. And he doesn't really answer it completely directly, but that's the implication here. And so Jesus then says, give to God, though, what is God's. And the Pharisees, they're shocked by his answer, and so they depart in shock. And their trap failed because Jesus was able to answer the question in a way that stayed true to the Jewish tradition and the Jewish law, but also stayed true to the law of the land, with the law that he was under in the Roman Empire. And so the Pharisees are kind of shocked by this. And so I also, though, really today want to hone in on that phrase from Jesus, give to God what is God's. Because we see give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and then give to God what is God's. And Jesus is emphasizing that give to God what is God's far above give to Caesar what is Caesar's. And I think it's very important to remember who we are in these times of political upheaval and unrest, where our attention and our minds are oftentimes just bombarded by the political atmosphere that we find ourselves in. We turn on the news, we're bombarded with it. I'm receiving text message after text message telling me who I should vote for. It's incessant. It's all around us. It can be overwhelming. And while Jesus is saying that paying taxes to a pagan government is not against God's will, he also declares that a higher purpose is to give to God what is God's. And I think it's really important to remember what is God's. What is God's? We are God's people. We are God's children. So we are to give ourselves to God, our lives to God, all of who we are to God. We are to declare that Jesus Christ is Lord. He is King of kings and Lord of lords. He's the King of our lives, the Lord of our lives. And so it's vital that we understand this, especially when it's so easy for our attention to be divided. It's so easy for our affiliations to be divided. It's so easy for us to go down a road that takes us towards other lords and other kings of our lives. And I think it can be very dangerous when our loyalties become spread out in our lives. And politics tends to do that to us, I think. It can spread out our loyalties. I think patriotism can be healthy, but there can be a fine line between our patriotic fervor and idolatry. I think we can serve both God and country, but I think there are times that serving country can be idolatry. I think there are times that we mold our faith to politics rather than molding our politics to our faith. There can be an imbalance where instead of simply accepting our system of government, we worship our system of government. We have to take great care that the King of Kings and Lord of Lords is the only Lord of our lives. That there's nothing else that's competing with that truth and that fact. And there's a lot of warning signs in my own life that I can think about when it comes to this. There's warning signs for me when I become too loyal to any political entity, any political party, any political person. When I become too loyal to any of those things, I am risking making that an idol in my life. And, I know that I, in the past, have looked past egregious problems because I found myself loyal to a political party or a particular person just because my politics match up with that person or with that party. I know that there can be really important issues to us. Like I know issues like abortion and taxes, issues like immigration, and all of these different hot button issues can really pull us in. And then because we support on that one issue, we have some people who agree with us in a political party or a particular politician who agrees with us, we begin to support the whole system, the whole political party. We support that person despite the terrible things that person may have said or done, and we get so caught up in it that we look past all the problems, and our loyalties are split between God and then these political entities or political people. And I think we have to be very careful about that. And always be looking inwardly at ourselves and examining our hearts and asking the question, is Jesus Christ the Lord of Lords and the King of Kings? Is he the Lord and King of my life? Or are there other things that I've raised up in my life to be as important to me? And so I think it's really important to ask those questions in a time like this, when we're dealing with politics in our nation and we're seeing it front and center. And I'll tell you, the way I've responded personally to a lot of my struggles with this is I've pulled myself back from the news. I've pulled myself back from the media and from social media, and I know I have to participate some in all of this, just like Jesus participated in some of the system in which he found himself in, as did the disciples and the Christians, the early Christians. But they didn't participate with their whole heart, soul, mind, and strength. Their allegiance was to God, and first and primary. And so I find myself, to remain healthy and sane, I have to pull back from this political fervor and to put my attention elsewhere, loving my neighbors and serving my community, and being the pastor that I'm called to be, and seeking after God with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength. And when I focus in on those things and put those things above the politics and above all of the other things that are happening right now, it really helps me to focus towards God, and it fills my heart with things that are good and noble and virtuous, rather than the mess that I see whenever I turn on the TV. And it just, the mess that it is makes me not want to participate in it. And it's very difficult for me to participate in it and remain a healthy individual personally. So that's how I've dealt with it myself. I'm sure there may be better ways to deal with it, but I haven't found one yet, a way that I can really remain tuned in and still remain healthy. Because I want Jesus Christ to be the Lord of my life. I want to give to God what is God's, and I am God's. I am a child of God. I am created by God to be in relationship with God. I am chosen by God. I'm loved by God. It's just a wonderful thing that God has gifted us with God's love, God's grace, and God has called us his own, and we are children of God. Remember that. Remember, you are a child of God, and God wants to be in a deep and abiding relationship with you. And so instead of putting your trust in the things of this world and putting your trust in the mess that is politics right now, put your trust in the Lord, and make the Lord of your life, and seek after the Lord with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. So, God bless you. It's been good to be with you today. I know that we're continuing to move through this interesting time. The year 2020 has definitely been a bear so far. It's been difficult in many ways, but I've also been encouraged in the midst of all this by you all and your faith. And I look forward to continuing to share my life with you and for you to share your life with me. And until next time, I'll be back here next Wednesday at noontime. And I hope that I will see you then. And you can tune in live, or you can, of course, as always find this recording of this video on YouTube or Facebook after the fact. So if you can't be there next Wednesday at noon, you can always log on to the YouTube page or Facebook page, and you'll find it. All right? Well, God bless you, and until next time.